What's going on, Assassins? It's Darkstrider, and the FBI has recently taken over and shut down several websites that were dedicated to providing video game ROMs for free. Now, before you get all up in arms and whatnot, let's explain to those who don't know what I'm talking about initially so that they understand. So, a ROM is actually the video game data so that you can play the game. As you can see, I'm playing Sonic 3. Now, there are only a few ways in which you can play Sonic 3 today if you wanted to. First of all, you would need a working Sega Genesis from the 1990s, and you would also need the actual game cartridge of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. If you do not have that, your other option is when you go and you find one of those collections, like for the PS4, the PS3, Xbox 360, Xbox One. They did sell a Sega Genesis collection, and that collection had various games, one of which included Sonic 3. So you buy this disc, you pop it into your PlayStation, your Xbox, and you're able to play these old school games. However, there are a lot of games that are not kind of in the public eye, that are cult classics, that are unable to be played, and you would need an emulator for that. Any collection that you find, like the old school original Mega Man collection, the Mega Man X collection, things like that, they all are emulated, basically. The system, the console, acts as an emulator, and you go and you purchase the game, you rent the game, you download the game, you're able to play this old school game. Emulators are a way of doing that as well. They make specific emulators for specific systems, one of which Nintendo was not happy with. It's their original Nintendo Entertainment System, their Super Nintendo Entertainment System. They are not with that. You cannot go and obtain a Super Nintendo Entertainment System emulator and emulate these games, play them on your PC. In some cases, some consoles are able to hold emulators as well, and they don't want you obtaining these emulators, getting these games. They want you buying these games. Now, how are you supposed to do that? How would Nintendo know that you do that? Nintendo no longer sells the original NES console. They do sell the Mini. However, it has limited games. There is no way to play all of the other games. And if you went out and you bought all the cartridges, you still can't play it on a Nintendo Mini. So how do you do this? How do you play the old school games? Especially in an age where if you go on eBay, you go on the marketplace of Facebook, things like that, you'll see that people think they have gold. They're selling games for outrageous prices. They're selling consoles for outrageous prices. And, I mean, it's too expensive. For some of us, we're able to actually afford that. I can go out and pay $100-something for a copy of Final Fantasy VII for the original PlayStation. No problem. Some people can't do that. Some people can't justify that. In some cases, some of these games are so old and so rare that you just don't have the capacity to pay for it. I actually have a Cheetah Men 2 cartridge. This thing, the last I've seen of it, it was worth like $2,500. If I were to sell that, are you going to pay me $2,500? Some of you are like, hell yeah, I'll buy it right now off of you. Some people are like, hell no, bro. Why would you think I'm going to pay $2,500 on one game from 1988? Are you insane? Well, the only other way to play it is through emulation. Now, there are some emulators that have present day, consoles, kind of like PS5 and Xbox One. Well, maybe not that recent, but PS3 era, PS4, I think they're working on right now. Those are still in production. They're still readily available. You can buy the games at like a GameStop. You know, in those cases, I fully agree. You know, it's an easy way to go out and play these games. You know, maybe you don't want to go out and buy a PS3, you know, or a PS4. Maybe you're a close friend of mine and you are looking to play a PS3, PS4 game, and I have it, and I lend you my PS3 and the game, and you play it. That's probably one of the only ways that you'll play it. All right? That I agree with, because you could still make money. They could still sell that, even though they're trying to kill off PS4, Xbox One era games and bring everybody into PS5, Xbox Series S and X. The only other way to do this is, again, emulation. If you want to play older games, though. You know? If you want to play original Nintendo, original Atari, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, Sega CD, you either have to have the console, or the easier and cheaper way is emulation. So, is emulation bad? I mean, Nintendo does it on the Nintendo Switch. If you have the subscription that Nintendo offers, you have access to emulated Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. I believe they're starting with GameCube. They have Game Boy Advance, all those systems, but they don't have all the games. They give you games here and there. So that's what Nintendo wants to work with. They want you to pay them basically to rent the older games, which, let's be real, that's something that a lot of companies do. Game Pass for Microsoft and Sony's PSN network, they offer old school games depending on how far. I know PlayStation actually does have PS1 games on their service. They have PS2 games. The same with Microsoft. They do have Xbox 360, Xbox One games that you can play, but you have to pay the subscription service. Now, honestly, it's not a bad deal for like the games that they have, going and paying a subscription service and getting any of those games. I don't see a problem with it. I don't see it as, you know, being problematic, too expensive or anything like that. It is a good alternative, but there are some games that you just cannot play. Sega no longer has a console. They no longer offer any services like that. You either have to buy them. They actually do sell on, you know, your iOS or your Android stores. They do sell some older games, but you're not going to find all your old games, all your favorites, you know, obscure games. You're not going to find those. So, I don't know. Maybe if there's a service, remove your ROMs that are basically based on that service, I would say. You know, don't put on a ROM for, let's say, Sonic 1 through 3 if there are collections that are sold, if there are things or different ways for you to get them, if you could rent them and whatnot. Don't bother with that. Don't bother with a lot of the newer games either. You know, PS3, PS4, PS5. You know, all of those. Go and purchase or you know, get the ROMs for like the older stuff, I kind of feel like. The whole thing is gaming preservation. Why are you going to deny people old games so that they know where these characters came from? A lot of you who were born in like the 90s or even the 2000s, your first interaction with Sonic is anything on like, I would say the PS3 through PS5 era. Your introduction to Solid Snake, the same thing. I met Solid Snake on the original Nintendo. He was still Solid Snake. He wasn't, it wasn't Metal Gear Solid, but he was fighting the Metal Gear. There are a lot of older games and games that you will never even know existed because you don't have access to them. The graphics, the stories, the games themselves. There are different experiences with different games, and I kind of feel like the older games, you could preserve them. There are ways of preserving them. Me, I am a collector. I have tons of physical copies, so shutting down any of those sites doesn't affect me at all. I've got them. I even go and I purchase the collections that they have for, you know, the PlayStation or Xbox. I collect those. Same thing with Steam. But there are some things you're not going to get. Commodore 64. You're not going to get Commodore 64 games. I have some on Steam, but unless you have an emulator, you're not going to get a lot of those old games. Or you have to wait till they redo them. They remake them. They enhance them. And what does that say about originality where all these games are being enhanced? They're being remastered. Right now, people are flipping out. They want a Final Fantasy IX remaster. Why not a brand new Final Fantasy? Why not Final Fantasy 17? Why not offer the old video game on the consoles for purchase? You know? And some of you don't have access if you're on a console. On Steam, we do. On Steam, they still have access to various games. There are some games you will never find. Look at Transformers War for Cybertron. That game is delisted on Steam and everywhere else. You can't get that game unless you bought the game. Unless you have it downloaded to your PS3, your Xbox 360, or you actually have the physical copy and a physical PS3 or Xbox 360, or even a working Nintendo DS, and you have both halves. You have War for Cybertron Autobot side and War for Cybertron Decepticon side. Those are the only ways you could play that game. Of course, there's emulation. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are as far as emulation goes. Did the FBI do the right thing? Is it stealing when you actually go and make grab a ROM? Or should they offer more things like the consoles, like the different collections that they offer for all of these games? Let me know in the comments below what you think. And let me know if you have alternative solutions. Let me know if you're supporting Stop Killing Games. Anyway, that's all I've got for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure you like and subscribe. It helps this channel out an awful lot. As always, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. And until next time, take care, be good, stay safe, take care of each other. I'll see you guys all in the next one.